Tuesday in the news on Vanguard Live. I am Precious Chukudi. We begin with the front pages of the papers this morning. Starting off with Vanguard. Vanguard is leading with 585 million naira graft. Suspended Betta Edu denied access to Tinubu. Rider says Humanitarian Affairs Minister to appear before EFCC today. Ex-Minister Sadiya Umar Farouk sleeps in EFCC cell over 44 billion naira scam. We are leaving no stone unturned in fishing out corporates, and that's coming from the EFCC. Uzodinma Udume, CSO Action Aid. I'm not a signatory to companies linked to Betta Edu, and that's come from Interior Minister. We can see a photo story showing a Plateau peace work in Jos. Khan leads a protest against continued killing in Plateau. Stories above unlawful detention. Court orders federal government to pay ex-CBN Gov Emefiele N100mM naira. We will appeal fine, and that's coming from EFCC. On page 9, insecurity. Gunmen invade Abuja Estate, kidnap 10. Obi slams federal government over lavish borrowing spending. On page 19, lastly on the front page of Vanguard, UBA surpasses a 1 trillion naira market capitalization mark. Take a look at the Punch newspaper. The Punch is leading with Tinubu orders 2 trillion naira poverty relief fund probe. Edu faces the EFCC today. The writer says the security aides stop Edu from meeting President. Buhari minister grilled for 12 hours. We take a look at the Guardian newspaper. The Guardian is leading with 585 million naira humanitarian scandal. EFCC quizzes embattled Edu, others as anti-graft or prowl heightens, and Obi deploys a huge borrowing profligate spending on luxury. Reps blame Agric Minister for delay in sharing Tinubu's palliative. You can see on page 3, NEC councils disclose license over 110 billion naira debt, appoints a sole administrator. Security guard backs life imprisonment over sexual assault. You can read it on the Metro page on page 8. Subscribers suffer service disruption over 70 billion naira interconnect debt. And it is blackmail to discredit me ahead of polls. Aiyedatiwa denies certificate forgery. And that's how we can take on the Guardian. We take a look at the Nation newspaper. The Nation is leading with Betta Edu faces EFCC grilling. And stories above, we have 37 billion EFCC quizzes ex-minister Sadiya. ABC picks Edo candidate February 17. NEC takes over discourse over poor performance. Firm holds NBET MO 110 billion naira. Kenya triumphs at Supreme Court. Aiyedatiwa rejects a forgery claim. Super Eagles lands in Lagos, and UBA crosses a 1 trillion naira cap marks. And that's how we can take on the front pages of the papers this morning. Join us after the break. We'll be right back. Alright, welcome back. If you're just joining us today in the news on Vanguard Live, I am Precious Chukudi, and joining me to talk about some of the stories on the front pages of the paper is Mr. Dayo Akintobi. He's publisher of Ligoji Today, Keja Today, and Lekki Today. It's good to have you join me this morning.
Always a pleasure to be here. Good morning to all our viewers.
Alright, so let's delve in. It's been Betta Edu since last week, and of course we know that in the course of the week we'll keep seeing more unfolding stories, and it's the fact that she's been slammed with 585 million. Money has been transferred to a civil servant's account, and the question is, what exactly is going on? What's your take about the situation?
Well, it's rather unfortunate, really, that in the infancy of this new administration, that this kind of a scandal would engulf it so quickly. But it's also admirable that the president was proactive. He immediately took steps and suspended her. He's asked the FCC to constitute an investigative panel, and they should thoroughly take a look at what exactly transpired, and that whoever is found culpable will be summarily dealt with. But I think it's important that he has to step aside for the pendency of the investigation. But let's remember that she's not been convicted or found guilty yet, in spite of all the hullabaloo and all the dust that's being raised. The bottom line is still an allegation. Yes, we've seen a memo that she purportedly signed, where she authorized government funds, public funds, to be transferred to the account of an individual. That in and of itself is a violation of the law. There is a specific law that states that no individual person's money can be paid to a government account, and no government money can be paid to an individual account, no matter what the circumstances, whether it's a contract, whether it's procurement, whether it's consultancy fees, whatever the case may be. Government money cannot be paid into any individual's account. She has tried to explain it away when the scandal first broke. I think the media aide from her office or the spokesperson from her office tried to justify that the person whose account it was is an official of the ministry and is in charge of disbursing these funds to vulnerable people, and then these people don't have accounts, so they have to pay them cash, which also contradicts what the Tinubu government said in the beginning, which was when Edu, Commissioner for Finance, he said nobody was going to be paid in cash, that everybody had to have an account. All 15 million vulnerable people that were going to be given these palliatives or this cash support, income support, that they will not be paid directly to an account. So what that tells me is that there is a problem with the database. There is no accurate database. The previous Minister of Humanitarian Affairs was also grappling with this issue of the database in terms of who are these most vulnerable Nigerians? How do you classify them? First of all, what even constitutes vulnerability? Is it how much money you earn a month? Is it how poor you are? Is it your living circumstances? Is it what? How do you qualify a vulnerable person? Then when you've now created the criteria for vulnerability, how do you document those people? You go out into the communities across the 774 local governments and start going house to house to measure who is poor and who is not poor. How? So where do these 15 million people come from, and how are they? Well, so this is why that ministry seems to be a cesspool for corruption. Because remember, even before the Betta Edu story, the previous minister is still in AFCC custody as we speak, being scrutinized for I think 40-something billion that was misappropriated during her time. That matter is still going on. Now the new minister is immersed in a new controversy. So it goes to what it tells me is that ministry is not transparent enough, it's not accountable enough, and it's a slush fund because that ministry is there to distribute assistance to the needy. So when it's a situation where they are putting people in a queue and they're giving them 5,000 in cash, it's a very, very easy avenue for corruption.
Right, of course, there are a lot of questions that are on the minds of Nigerians as to why exactly is the minister paying such a huge amount of money to a civil servant's account instead of electronically paying the beneficiaries directly, and also what is like the mechanism in place for accountability? Why is it exactly that our ministers and public funds, what exactly is the relationship there?
Yeah, because you see, basically, the government is the one place in Nigerian society where there is what is called free money. Basically, there's nowhere in Nigerian society, not the corporate world, not even the religious sector, the pastors and the ministers who preach prosperity, and there seems to be a lot of money flowing around there. There's nowhere in Nigerian society that's as lucrative as government, and that's why everybody tries to get there, because that is seen as the easiest avenue to riches. And so, truth be told, most of the people who are going to go into government are not going there to serve the people first. Even if they happen to serve the people in the process, that's not their primary motive. Remember, majority of these people are appointed as ministers. It's political payback. There are people who supported the government during the campaign. This Betta Edu, for example, was an APC woman leader. And my understanding is that she was recommended or nominated for this position by the First Lady, Mrs. Tinubu, as a payback or reward for her campaigning for the APC presidential ticket during the campaign. So it's not necessarily that she passed an integrity test. It's not necessarily that she passed a competence test, right? All that was done was that she was rewarded, and that, if you look at those who are occupying high offices today, many of them is simply a matter of political patronage, and as such, they cannot be they are beholden to their own interests first, because they're not, their primary motive was not to come and serve the people. I mean, I saw a video of Mrs. Edu or Miss Edu when they said she went to church to give thanks for being appointed a minister. I saw a video floating on social media when she was giving thanks that she was appointed a minister of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And the impression I got, the adulation and the celebration, it was not reminiscent of somebody who is going there to go and labor and toil in service of the people. This was more about ego. This was more about self-praise. This was more about naked ambition. And so I think our political system is structured in such a way that it throws up all the worst people or the wrong people or ill-motivated people. Because, look, for example, to even run for president, how many hundreds of millions of naira do you need just to buy your party's ticket? So right there, that has eliminated 99.99999% of Nigerians from even trying to contest, because you're already marginalized by the barriers to entry. And as such, it's a very small circle of people who are recycling these positions among themselves, and very few outsiders can come in. So that corrupt DNA keeps replicating itself within the same small genetic pool of people. It's replicating. So to break out of such a system is very, very difficult.
Also, the Minister of Interior, Tinubu, has debunked a rumor that he was a signatory to the company involved in the contract allegation linked to the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. What do you make of that? People are saying, even if you're saying that you used to be a signatory, to the company, you are still a shareholder.
This is corruption fighting back, because he is the poster boy of this administration, because he's done wonders in 6 months in immigration to do with passports, in prison reform, in all kinds of stuff under his ministry. He's really been performing very well. So they say, well, basically because he has plugged all the loopholes where people are chopping in immigration, where people are making a lot of money in customs and all those, he's plugged the loopholes, so it's corruption fighting back. But truth be told, it doesn't really pass the smell test. I listened to his explanation and it didn't satisfy me, to tell you the truth, because in spite of the fact that he claims that he resigned from the company when he ran for House of Rep, because I guess House of Rep requires that you don't hold public directorship in a company while you are representing the country or something, I don't know. He says he resigned, but he admitted that he founded the company, that even though he's no longer a director, he's still a shareholder, which means he gets dividends, which means he benefits from any profit that the company makes. So that consultancy that was given to his company by Betta Edu is going to benefit him, even if he's not a director any longer. He's a shareholder. And of course, if he was the founder, his shares cannot be small. His shares will probably be substantial, which means out of however many billion the consultancy was, by the time they pay all their costs, whatever profit is left, a good substantial chunk of it is going to go to him. So I think there's a natural conflict of interest there, even if he no longer is. He said, he's not involved in the day-to-day running of the business. But the question is, can it be a coincidence that you, who are in the same administration with the minister who awarded this consultancy, awarded this contract, is it a coincidence that she just picked the most qualified company out of those who applied, and it happens to be a company you have an interest in, and yet both of you are in the same administration? Is it a coincidence, or out of the hundreds of thousands of businesses and consultancies that are in Nigeria, which will happen to be the one that you have an interest in? Because even though you are no longer a director, you have an interest because you are a shareholder. So I don't think that it's a coincidence. I think there was some cronyism going on there. You do for me, I do for you. Maybe there was going to be some sort of profit share between the people involved. I don't know. But it's painful to me, because all the good he has done might not be dented. His reputation may be dented based on this untoward thing.
Just as for what he's done concerning the passports.
Yes.
And people have also said these things that is it possible for government to stop awarding contracts to ministers and senators, like why can't they award contracts to just plain individuals who we can eventually go after in case of any anomalies that goes on?
Well, there's a procurement process and there's a qualification process, and part of Tunji Ojo's argument is, did the company do the job it was given to do? Did it do it properly? Did it deliver? Did it, so what's the issue? But it goes beyond that though. It's not about the body. It's about, does it pass the smell test? I mean, was it on tour? Was it above board? Is there a conflict of interest? Is there personal gain by those who should not have gained? So when we say what can be done, well, they say when the foundation is rotten, the house cannot stand. So it goes back to what we keep talking about corruption, is that procurement processes, I would think that there is some kind of bylaw that says if you are serving the country, you can't have any conflicts of interest. That's why you find people divesting their interest, when they come into office. That's why they have to declare their assets. And that's why you find people putting their assets into blind trusts, or into or resigning or whatever, putting their assets away from any potential conflict of interest. I think there are existing laws that say you cannot be in office, in public office, and have such conflict of interest by having ownership in any existing company that is bidding for government jobs. I'm sure there are those laws on the books, but perhaps they're not being implemented. Perhaps it's all this political, quid pro quo, do for me, I do for you. So what's the easiest way to reward your loyalty? I can't just go to the CBN vault and carry cash and give you. So if you have a company, or you have a brother who has a company or something like that, bring it and we will award. So you make your reward from that job. It's all part of this political quid pro quo, rub my back and rub your back. But it's not the very best, and there's got to be ways to put a check to it. But the bottom line is, I don't know if it's just showboating, and if it's just playing to the gallery that this government has seemed to take substantive steps towards curbing corruption, like for example, suspending Betta Edu, then investigating her predecessor, then 2 people were sacked by the president yesterday, EFCC chairman has been removed, CBN governor is undergoing charges. So the initial steps of this government looks like it's serious about fighting corruption. So let's give it a chance and see how it goes.
Okay, so my question is, what is the meaning of integrity in Nigeria at this moment, and what does honor actually mean in Nigeria at this moment? Because at this point it's looking like even the people who you feel like should come and do the right thing and not doing. For example, I was going on social media yesterday, and I saw a couple of people venting and saying, even when we're saying that we want the youth in politics, we expect that they are coming in to create principles and policies that will make even the people in government see that, oh, this is the reason why we need to have more younger people in government. So what exactly does integrity mean to Nigeria at the moment?
But where are the youth going to get that straightforwardness, that integrity, that moral rectitude? Where is it going to come from if those who are ahead of them? Remember, values and principles that you're talking about, they are passed down from generation to generation. We look at those in front of us and we emulate them. They are our heroes, they are our leaders. That's what leader means. You lead, we follow. So we embrace your examples, and so you walk the walk, you talk the talk, we follow you. Do you understand? So how do we expect that the youth will be any different from those ahead of them? If the political class in the ahead generation is behaving in a particular way, they are passing down those values to those coming after them. So even though Betta Edu is 37 and Bosu Tijani is in his early 40s, I think, and 2 or 3 other ministers are what we would consider to be quote-unquote youth. My question is, how can we expect their value system to be any different from the older generations? Because it is what they see the older generations doing that they also embrace. So the average Nigerian today the notion of government or the notion of going to government to serve is to enrich yourself, to better your life, to better the lives of those around you. And truth be told, immediately you get nominated as a minister, that's the day you will find out that some of your primary school colleagues are still alive. You haven't heard from them in 50-something years. Yeah. Then they come out of the woodwork. So all the pressure is on you because everybody is now looking at you as a savior. You are now in a position whereby you can elevate everybody, your family, your village people, your neighbors, your church, everybody. So it's a collective mentality that says that the notion of service is a notion of elevation. It's a notion of prosperity. Money has come. My life has changed. I am removed from poverty, and all those around me also expect to benefit from this my sudden elevation by God. So when you say what is integrity, integrity has a dictionary definition, but integrity, Nigeria's definition of integrity is highly subjective. It's based on what is best for you and not what is best for the country at large.
All right, moving on. Peter Obi has kicked against what he describes as a federal government disturbing pattern of huge borrowing and spending on non-essential procurement, warning that such pattern would soon wreck the economy. What do you make of that?
So Peter Obi is trying to be the opposition. He's commenting, yes, he's commenting on everything, and he's taking the government to task. And of course, that's the role of an opposition. But sometimes you have to let your criticisms be objective and be based on solid facts, and let it not just be what we call bad belly, that because you lost to these people, you are going to criticize any and everything they do, whether good or bad. So yeah, we all know that borrowing is a problem, that Nigeria is over-leveraged, we borrowed too much, we're currently servicing our debts with too much of our revenue. And too much of a percentage of our revenue is going to debt servicing, and that's just interest payments alone. So we all know this, and we're all worried about the fact that even just last week, government borrowed again from Afrexim Bank. They borrowed, I think, $3 billion or something to that effect, and the borrowing spree continues. So he is right to some extent to complain about it, and when he says that procurement is going to non-essential items, we look at things like the size of government, the size of the convoys, the size of the staff, the number of aides at each minister, each senator, each house of rep, each director. So cost of governance is too high. When you look at the budget that was signed into law, the 2024 Appropriation Act, and you look at how much is recurrent expenditure to pay salaries, to pay running costs, to pay interest payments on debts, it's absolutely astronomical. It's just too much of a percentage of the total. So without a doubt, government needs to be more focused in terms of what it spends money on. But I don't think we have a debt problem per se. I think we have a revenue problem. I think that's the issue. 80% of our foreign earnings last year came from oil dependency. As long as we continue to do that, and oil is subject to the vagaries of the international market, I think we're in trouble. So yeah, it's a good thing to try and look at and focus on debt, but we also need to really ramp up revenue generation.
All right, the High Court in Abuja has also ordered the federal government to, pay the sum of 100 million naira to former central bank governor, and that's Gov Emefiele for violating his fundamental right. EFCC has also said they will appeal the case. What do you make of that situation?
Well, you can't rule by impunity, and that's what the court is trying to protect, because the point is Emefiele was giving bail more than once, and each time he would try to get his freedom, they would clamp him down again. So it's a worldwide thing ratified by the United Nations that everybody is entitled to a minimal degree of human rights. They spell out what those rights are. One of them simply is that you cannot be held against your will if a court has given you license to be released for whatever. Because remember, in all of these allegations, you are innocent, you are presumed innocent until proven guilty. So as long as you have a bailable offense, there is absolutely no justifiable reason for you to continue to be held. When that man was in prison for I'm not talking about the last period of the last month where he had bail and he couldn't post it, but Prior to that, I think he was locked up for about 4 to 5 months, to where they refused to release him. Anytime he would go to court and the court would dismiss his case, they would be waiting for him outside, they would arrest him again. So what the court is saying is that even if you are a law enforcement agency, you can't carry out your duties with impunity. You have to respect the rights of every human being. And the legal dictum that each person is innocent until proven guilty, it applies. So you cannot begin to treat them like they're already guilty even before they've gone through a court process. So yes, I know that a lot of people are emotional about the Emefiele saga, because a lot of us went through a lot of hardship and pain based on his policies. Naira redesign, all kinds of parallel market, forex, funny things, all these social investments he was doing with the CBN and throwing money at different people and all that. So many of us really suffered under him, and we are happy to see him suffer as well. But the point is, if we turn a blind eye to the violation of his civil rights, none of us is safe, because each and every be just going on the street, innocently minding your own business. Remember in those days when police used to arrest young boys simply because either they had dreadlocks, or they had tattoos, or they are carrying a laptop, or they are wearing a face cap backwards? That was a violation of their human rights, because police will say, well, we suspect you. You can't suspect me based on how I look. You can't suspect me based on my actions. If either somebody has reported, or you've seen me acting in a shady way, or you found me in the wrong place, but simply because of the way I look does not give you the right to suspect me of criminal activity. So those kind of things, we have to protect everybody's human rights. Otherwise, none of us is safe. Anybody at any time, on the basis of any flimsy ground, they can say, oh, you have tribal marks, and everybody that has tribal marks have been proven to be what? And for that reason, everybody who has tribal marks, they suddenly start arresting people. So the court is protecting all of us. By protecting Emefiele, they're protecting all of us. The FCC has said you will appeal. Let's see, that's their right.
All right, before we go, let's just touch on, so what's your take on CAN's protest against the continued killings in Plateau?
Well, I think it's timely, because remember, a lot of the people in Plateau that have been killed are Christians. And so CAN is saying that it's looking like it's a religious thing, even though the world now, generally, they're starting to believe now, is that a lot of these things happening in Plateau and some of these surrounding states are because of the resources that are underground in these places. Because it seems to now be a land grab. It seems like these killings are just to eliminate the people so that they can take over their land, because apparently there's a lot of rich stuff under that land. But inadvertently, because in Plateau it's a predominantly Christian state, so inadvertently the killings are mainly of Christian people. So the Christian Association of Nigeria is saying we have to stand up and complain about this, because of course, if you saw people as being predominantly affected, we have to speak up for them. I saw a picture, they were all in black. The people in the front, all the religious leaders, they were all wearing cassocks and they were all in black, and they made a poignant statement to the fact that these killings have to stop. Government has to ramp up security, protect their people, and that's really what leadership is all about, is that you stand up for your people, you fight for your people. So Christian Association is fighting for Christians in Plateau, nothing wrong with that.
All right, let's touch on Mr. and Mrs. before we go. Mrs. is speaking. She says that you're going to enjoy that food. I took special care to make sure it's tasty and delicious. What do you think people gain by eating corn food? And Mr. replies and says, I think people eat corn food must be good in corn food.
Mr. He's playing a word. It's a play on word. Corn food, corn food. I love Mr. He's a lexicographer extraordinaire.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Daya Akintobi, for sharing your talk with us this morning. And he's the publisher of Liquidity Today, Ikeja Today, and Lekki Today. Remember that you can equally like, share, and subscribe on all our social media platforms showing on your screen. To find out today's stories, go to our website www.vanguardindia.com to find out more. I am Precious Chukudi.